Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Matters That Matter. I'm Simran and I'm in a conversation with my mentor, Susie Singh. Susie, let's address cravings today. Whenever we crave for something, it can be a very intense and all consuming feeling, and it can seriously test a person's resolve, patience, and discipline. So, how does one deal with cravings when they arise in us?
Simran, I'd like to answer this question in three parts. The first is let's understand what causes the craving. Then we'll come to how the mind reacts to that experience of craving. And finally, we'll address how we can solve for the craving. So if we look at the Webster's Dictionary for the definition of craving, it says it is an intense, urgent and abnormal longing for something. Almost all cravings arise because there is a deep denial of pleasure within ourselves. And this is associated with three thoughts in the mind. The first thought is, I want this, which is the desire. There is a second thought which says, but I can't have it, which is the denial. And then there is a third aspect which says, it's wrong for me to even have this desire, which is the guilt.
Right.
Now, it is the forbidden nature that makes all cravings all-consuming and all-powerful. And usually these cravings are associated with the region in our brain that is connected with pleasure and with reward. So you'll often find that cravings arise in the context of, at a physical level, food, drink, drug, and sex. And at an emotional and psychological level, with attention, appreciation, acceptance, approval, acknowledgement, the 5 A's, which all of us so desperately want. Right. And sometimes that craving for these things can become so very intense, as you said, so overwhelmingly and so all-consuming. So let's take an example of something that happens very commonly, and people, call me and ask about this, is when they have recently embraced a spiritual practice or a path, and they are trying to give up eating non-vegetarian food. So suddenly, they will have this thought in their head that I'd like to eat chicken tikka. So we can see their craving has arisen, and simultaneously within a nanosecond, imagination takes over and it will start glorifying this whole idea of savoring butter chicken in that moment, and you'll find the mouth will start salivating, and then suddenly they find themselves really weak and they want to give in to that craving. What happens next is that the policing mind is going to arrive, and it's going to come and it's going to sort of wrap their knuckles and turn around and say, oh my God, you've just taken this decision. You're so weak-minded and you want to kill animals. What does that make you? It makes you a murderer. So we can see that now shame and guilt have quietly crept into that place. And what's going to happen is it's going to force them to repress that desire immediately. And the minute that repression happens, the desire is going to become more intense. So, which brings us to the second part. What are the reactions in the mind when the craving arrives? So the first thing is imagination. Now, craving has arisen. There is this active desire in me. I want it. I don't want it. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to use my imagination to satiate my hunger. And I can't control it because the mind just spins out of control, and I'm going to start thinking of it, followed by obsessing about this. Because now that you've sort of tasted blood, you whet your appetite, you had the appetizer, you want the main course, and you want more of the same thing. So you can see that you go into this obsession. Next arrives the glorification, the exaggeration, and suddenly your mind is thinking that, oh my God, there isn't anything better than butter chicken on this planet. So, all of that starts happening. And then there is the loss of reality. So you start having this feeling, for example, when a smoker is craving for a smoke, they will start thinking that, just one more smoke, just one smoke. If you can give me that right now, my mind is going to be at peace forever. Now, we can see that's not really true, and there is a distortion of reality happening here, but the mind believes it somehow.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that as the craving increases, directly proportional to that, your guilt is also going to increase.
Right.
And the more deeply that you start suppressing it, the more intense your craving and your desire for that object becomes. So you can see we are dealing with a really complex experience here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so how do we deal with this when it happens to us? And, we can find that the craving, like I said, it can happen in the context of physical stuff. It can also happen in the context of relationship, in this pining, in this craving for the object of our love. The object of the love could be a substance, or it could be a human being, whichever.
Yeah, yeah.
So when this is happening, the first thing that we really need to understand is that we are dealing with two contrarian forces within us, which are almost equally powerful, pulling us in opposite directions.
Right.
So there is attraction on the one hand, and there is repulsion on the other hand. And this is a bit like being at civil war within yourself, because you are so conflicted.
Yeah.
Understanding that you're dealing with what we call double bind situations, being pulled in opposite forces. I want it so badly, and I don't want it so badly because it's morally wrong for me.
Yeah.
So being torn apart, this is the first thing. So this is understanding the anatomy of craving. The first thing that we need to start dealing with is the part that is denial, the part that makes it wrong for me to have this desire or this craving. And we need to sit down and make a long list about why I believe it is wrong for me to have this desire or this urge or this craving or this longing, why it's abnormal. Make a list of that.
Right.
The next we need to, and this is going to be the tough part, because, this is where we are going to be judging ourselves really badly. Then we come to the second part, which is the exaggeration or the glorification part. And we actually make that list. What are the things I believe will become possible for me once I have this? And we write down the list of all the distorted reality in our mind. The next step is a really important step, and I call that neutralizing the opposite forces. We sit with these two lists, and through intense, deep work with logic, introspection, and with belief change work, we actually discover and eliminate all the false beliefs, either associated with the denial, why it's wrong for me to have this, and with the exaggeration or the glorification, because, if I have one smoke, it's not going to make my mind forever in a state of bliss and peace. We know that's erroneous thinking. So we neutralize it through this work. And I said it's important that we do both, the introspection and the understanding of, is this really true? And coming to that, arriving at that, and also doing the belief work, because we will dig out and excavate a lot of false beliefs while we're doing this.
Right.
Once this is done, we'll find that the craving has already started to settle down. But the last piece is also very important. And I always say, give yourself a taste, a little piece of that which you were craving of. Because it is so important that you complete the experience of the reality check by tasting it. Now, don't go for the whole cake, because your mind has been wanting the whole cake, but give yourself a little piece. What this really does is it completely destroys the glorification. You go, you have a taste of that, you realize, listen, I was sort of making heaven out of nothing. It isn't really that.
Right.
And so these are the various experiences that you really need to, the steps that you need to take if you want to address a craving that's sort of spinning out of control, or you think that, it's becoming compulsive, obsessive, and it's driving you insane.
So, Susie, when we crave, whether it is something physical like food or whether it is another human being, and this distortion and this glorification is happening, are we always craving the object for what it is? Or are there sometimes some hidden needs behind them that that particular object or that particular person is fulfilling in our lives? For example, a lot of people crave comfort, but they find that in the physical object of food. So, how can we work on fulfilling our needs in the long term and fulfill them in places other than these objects that we think fulfill those for us?
So I think that's a very valid and important question, because this is when we start addressing the fantasizing bit. You know, we start fantasizing that we are going to have something, and which is why I said do work with those two lists, because when we actually start working on the glorification and the what I'm denying myself or why I can't have it, I am likely to arrive at some of my more basic needs or my hidden needs. That what is it that this food that I want, or this drug that I want, or this alcohol that I want, or the smoke that I want is actually bringing to me? What kind of comfort? What do I want to escape by having it? And so it gets me in touch with that aspect of me, that unmet need. Okay. Like I said, psychologically, a lot of it could be that the physical comforting is only hiding or camouflaging or substituting a deeper psychological need. And so it'll lead us to that psychological need. What is it that I am feeling I don't have? Is it, am I craving attention? Am I craving affection? Am I wanting to be admired? Am I feeling lonely? There is always going to be some hidden psychological need. And once we do find that, then of course we have to address that deeper need. And often what happens is when we transpose this need onto another person when it comes to relationships, you know, so we'll start thinking that, oh, if I can have my love back, if I can be back in this relationship, or if my love interest is mesmerized by me again, then the qualities that he has will rub on to me. And often you'll find that that intense craving or that attraction is also linked to a quality the other person has and which you think you don't have. So I would say bring your attention back to yourself. If you think that my boyfriend is very attractive to me because he's so self-reliant and I'm so dependent and he's so independent, then the question I should be asking myself is, how can I make myself more self-reliant so that I become more attractive to me? Now, the minute I'm more attractive to me, I'm not going to go looking for it outside. So can I try and curate, build that particular thing that I'm looking for on the outside inside it?
So dealing with cravings can only be effective if we really get to the root cause of the craving, whether it is an escape or whether it is a source of meeting one of our unmet needs psychologically or emotionally. Thank you so much, Susie, for shedding light on this. I'm sure it will benefit a lot of our viewers. If you find this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.